It's been a while, hasn't it, since I've done something on remyelination. It seemed like for a while there, I was doing something almost every week on some new drug that's being advanced as a potential remyelinating agent. And wouldn't that be nice? Well, the long hiatus is over. I found another one to talk about today. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of You and Me and Multiple Sclerosis. My name is Pam. I've been living with MS for over 40 years. Today I came across an article that I'll share with you. It looks like this particular drug has been in the works for a little bit, and it's certainly not ready for prime time. But based on the results of their studies in brain tissue, petri dishes, and probably mice, there's a lot of promise, and there have been a number of investors that have gotten interested enough to advance them some money, including the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. So certainly worth taking a look. I saw this article in Multiple Sclerosis News today. It was posted on March 18th of 2025. It's called Myrobalan wins grant for MS remyelination candidate MRO-002. Now, Myrobalan, I looked up how to pronounce that, so I hope I'm right. Yeah, according to the American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language, it's pronounced Myrobalan, as you can see there, and it refers to a tree of South Asia whose fruits are used for tanning leather and in Ayurvedic medicine. And then there's some other definitions there, but I think that's the main one that I've seen in other places. And as I say, I'm not sure what connection that term has in reference to this Myrobalan Therapeutics, but perhaps it's because one of their branches is located in China, and China has a tendency to name things kind of more holistically or whimsically, I guess, however you want to look at it, than we in America do. We're kind of dry and boring here in America. They say that Myrobalan Therapeutics has been awarded a grant of more than $850,000 from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society to advance its new oral candidate MRO-002 for treating progressive forms of multiple sclerosis. The funding was made through the Society's Fast Forward program, which seeks to bridge the gap between preclinical and clinical development for new therapies and diagnostic tools that address disease progression and progressive forms of MS. Myrobalan's experimental therapy, MRO-002, is a GPR17 antagonist or inhibitor that's designed to promote myelin repair in people with MS and other demyelinating conditions. With the grant, the company will conduct additional preclinical experiments to determine if it may have therapeutic benefits in progressive MS. We are excited to receive the Fast Forward grant from the National MS Society and appreciate their confidence in our drug development approach, Jin Wang, PhD, CEO, and co-founder of Myrobalan, said in a company press release. We believe that MRO-002 has the potential to promote myelin repair in neurodegenerative diseases, demyelinating disorders, and conditions involving recovery from central nervous system injury. Finding ways to aid myelin repair. In MS, the immune system mistakenly attacks the myelin sheath, a fatty coating around nerve cells. Like an insulator on electrical wires, myelin protects nerve fibers and ensures the efficient transmission of nerve signals. When it's lost, patients experience a range of symptoms related to disruptive nerve signaling. Myelin is produced by oligodendricites, specialized cells in the brain and spinal cord. And I've talked about those in other videos, and I'll try to link those below. While existing oligodendrocytes have some ability to repair damaged myelin or restore lost myelin, the remyelination process isn't very efficient in MS due to ongoing inflammation. There's also insufficient maturation of oligodendrocyte precursor cells into fully functional oligodendrocytes that are able to produce myelin. A key challenge in MS treatment is the repair of damaged myelin. While available disease-modifying therapies help reduce relapses and slow disease progression, their ability to repair myelin and reverse disability is limited. Finding therapies that can improve remyelination has been a long-standing goal in MS research. One promising approach involves targeting GPR17, a receptor in OPCs that prevents the cells from maturing into fully functioning oligodendrocytes, thereby limiting myelin repair. MRO-002 is a highly selective GPR17 antagonist that can cross the blood-brain barrier, the protective membrane that restricts the passage of most substances from the bloodstream into the brain. This ability lets it reach the brain and remove this brake from OPCs, causing them to mature and boosting the production of new myelin. Preclinical studies on human-derived oligodendrocytes and animal models of demyelination have shown encouraging results. And I'm thinking we're probably talking about EAE and our good friends, the mice again. So again, thank you, mice, for helping us out here. MRO-002 significantly boosted the maturation of oligodendrocytes in both models, resulting in enhanced remyelination in the brains of the animals. With support from the National MS Society, the company hopes to conduct additional studies to support MRO-002's development toward clinical trials. Having a therapy that promotes myelin repair would have tremendous implications for people living with MS, said Walter Kostic, PhD, Associate Vice President of Translational Research at the National MS Society. We are happy to support Myrobalan Therapeutics' preclinical testing of MRO-002 and look forward to learning whether it has translational potential for people with MS. So translational meaning, I assume, it translates from animal models to people. And that would be a very neat thing, wouldn't it? I wanted to just jump back to January 16, 2024, the article that was published in Multiple Sclerosis News today. Back then, $24 million in financing to advance treatments to protect myelin sheath, Myrobalan aiming to move potential oral therapies into clinical trials. I did not at that time, I don't think, report on this to you guys because it seemed awfully early. As I looked into it, it seemed awfully early in the research, and I thought, well, this may not amount to anything, so I don't want to get all of our hopes up. But now that they've got a follow-on study, I think it's probably worth looking at. And in case you were curious, I just jumped down to this one paragraph that talks about who has funded the original $24 million, and it says Co-Win Ventures led the financing round, joined by investors that included Guanxi Equity Investment, Leishree Partnership, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, 3E BioVentures Capital, and AB Magnitude Ventures Group. So these are all venture capitalists rather than pharmaceutical companies that funded the initial research. But like pharmaceutical companies, they wouldn't have funded this, especially not to the tune of $24 million, unless they saw that there was some potential here for them to realize a return on their investment. Let's take a quick look at their website, which is actually quite attractive, isn't it? I like the color. Myrobalan Therapeutics, harnessing the restorative potential of novel CNS therapeutics, tackling neuroinflammation and promoting remyelination. So they're covering both facets of multiple sclerosis. Remember that in the early relapsing remitting stage, neuroinflammation is the big problem. But when we get into the more progressive stages, we don't have as much inflammation, but we have lost myelin. And so they're looking at both phases. It's not to say that we don't lose myelin in the early stage, But we have a different set of issues with progressive MS, so I am very glad that they're looking into it. If we just take a look at their pipeline, they say that Myrobalan is pioneering first-in-class and best-in-class small molecule therapies targeting novel mechanisms critical to a wide range of CNS diseases with significant unmet needs. Our approach centers on combating demyelination and neuroinflammation, two fundamental processes in underlying conditions like multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, ALS, Parkinson's disease, and various other demyelinating and neurodegenerative disorders. And if we just scroll down here a little bit, you will see the three areas that they're looking at. The CSF1R is targeting neuroinflammation. The GPR17 that we've been hearing about is the one focused on myelin repair. And TYK2 is neuroinflammation and neurodegeneration. And we can see that according to this, the arrows are showing that GPR17 has passed through discovery and preclinical. It's venturing now into the IND enabling. I guess that might mean independent enabling. I'm not sure, but then you see that their ultimate goal is to begin clinical trials, and they have not reached that in any of the three targets that they're currently pursuing. Well, this last thing I'll show you is just a very short video clip from a news aggregation source. All they're doing is talking about the top stories in neurology and the new developments coming out. And interestingly, this was the first story, so I'll only play this little bit. It's only a few seconds, but it's encouraging to know that of all the things they could have focused on as their #1 story, they picked this one.
Welcome to this week's edition of Neuroscience Updates, covering the latest breakthroughs. Brought to you by Lucid Quest. Myrobalan Therapeutics has secured over $850,000 in funding from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society's Fast Forward program. The grant will accelerate the preclinical development of MRO-002, a potential myelin repair therapy for progressive multiple sclerosis. CEO Jing Wang highlights its broader potential in treating neurodegenerative diseases and central nervous system injury recovery.
It's nice to know that there are so many different candidate drugs out there. One of them, one of these days, is bound to do something. And as I've said many times, and I think others have too, remyelination is probably going to work best for people whose disease course is fairly new. I think those of us who've lived with MS for a long time, when you look at our brain scans, you see that there's a lot more going on than just some nerves that have lost their myelin sheaths and could be fixed. We have entire black holes where the axons are just gone. So there's not a lot right now that anybody is optimistic enough to think we're going to be able to restore that. But that never say never. I think you have to take the first step before you can run a mile. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're still hoping that somebody out there of all of these different candidates is the one that's going to take that important step and get us to where we can see remyelination in actual people with MS. And until that happens, we're right to be a little bit skeptical, a little reserved in our judgments. But never give up. You just don't know. I'm amazed at things that have happened across the medical field, not just in MS. So much is better now than it used to be. So I'm not going to say that there's no way this is ever going to happen. But it's going to be a long wait. So in the meantime, take really good care of yourself, okay? And I'll see you again in my next video.